good opportunity to execute. For businesses who are really well poised to be resilient, who have been planning for mitigating risk and change and navigating those headwinds and tailwinds, it's really time to execute. And that's what I would emphasize because I'm seeing more projects, more new opportunities, more critical infrastructure getting backed up and provided with power, more parking lots getting covered with renewable power. It's just more of the projects, which is exactly what we would have expected. So I think that's what just, being able to thrive in this moment of challenges and uncertainty, but also knowing that the future is bright.
Welcome to the Blue Ocean Solutions podcast, where we dive into real conversations with business owners, innovators, and industry leaders shaping the future of clean tech, construction, and the renewable energy sectors. I'm Kreel Hutchinson, the host. Our guest today is Andrew Dunn, the Energy Solutions and Sales Director at FENECON USA in the Charleston, South Carolina area. Today, we're going to be discussing his groundbreaking work in the sustainable battery solutions, transforming discarded EV components into powerful energy storage systems, and his vision for integrating AI to revolutionize complex project coordination and sales in the clean tech sector. If you're a founder or executive, you will love this show because Andrew shares his insights on navigating complex projects, building sales organizations from the ground up, and leveraging innovative solutions like First Life Auto EV batteries. Is an example of strategic thinking and technological innovation can drive sustainable growth and solve critical energy challenges. Welcome to the podcast, Andrew.
Hey, Kreel, thanks very much. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Perfect. So why don't we knock off by you introducing yourself, a little bit about your background, your role today, and what you are up to at FENECON.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, my name's Andrew Dunn, and I am originally from Georgia and have a background in engineering and advanced applied physics, different fields in engineering physics applications. And that has served me well throughout a career in energy and sustainability. So I started my career out in the San Francisco Bay Area, which also was a nice facilitator to really synthesize a lot of key topics that have woven their way consistently throughout my career. In the Bay Area for about 6 years and then relocated back to the Southeast. I'm now based in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm calling in here from right near the coast, here in the Charleston area. So my career spans about 20 years of applications in energy and power systems and sustainable technology solutions, and now working more across leadership and the academic and policy realm as well. And currently serving as Energy Solutions and Sales Director at FENECON USA, a company that's associated with FENECON, the headquarters, our mother company, FENECON Inc. in Germany. And we've been developing the company here for several years, and it's based in Greenville, South Carolina. So I travel back and forth between Charleston, South Carolina, and the upstate Greenville, where we are currently launching a manufacturing facility for large scale battery systems. And so my work consists of that, as well as some additional advisory and academic work.
Okay, great. Give us a little bit for our audience that may not know FENECON. Give us a kind of a rough estimate of the size of the Germany company and your size here.
Yeah, it's a good starting point. The German company really goes back to the extent of my whole career, so it's been going for a couple of decades as well, and now has over 400 employees. And we've been through some major growth in the late stages of 2025 and now have more personnel around the globe and scattered throughout, all throughout Asia and South America, and more people in North America. And here in the USA, with that in mind, we have closer to around a dozen employees. So we're in an earlier stage of growth and just moving into our larger scale manufacturing facility, where we'll see more of our more rapid growth phase.
Great. So what is the kind of the early vision of FENECON USA? And what's driving the ethos behind your work and what you guys want to accomplish here in the United States?
Right. That's a big topic that really resonates when FENECON is brought to light with anyone who's not familiar. And the reason that I joined the company really primarily is around the brand and the culture and the mission. What we've done here in the USA is bring over a part of the mission and the overall this focus on a theme called the energy journey from Germany, which is really about meeting customers where they are and helping them with energy and power solutions. The core focus of that being on battery storage and energy generation and transitioning to cleaner power generation over time. So as we provide the battery storage solutions, the piece of that that we're bringing to the USA is manufacturing battery storage that is at a larger scale, like industrial scale, grid scale. Like if you think large shipping container size battery systems, we'll utilize that and put it in containers for stationary applications, which are the applications where the battery storage is usually sitting still or being moved around on a skid. So we can use those mobile EV batteries and put them in containers. That is what FENECON as a brand is really all about pushing forward. And in the USA, it even involves helping the UL certification bodies and the different stakeholders involved to better understand and align with the auto EV industry for stationary battery storage, and then also deploying smart German battery storage innovation in general in the USA, selling containers and shipping them in 2026, producing containers in 2026 here, and integrating more of the auto EV components with UL proper certifications or safety standards at the right time for the right customers.
Well, it sounds like a really smart solution to it, like a downstream effect of taking stranded assets, as you call them, and then upcycling them into a whole new viable energy source or battery storage source. Following up with that, then, what are some of the most influential trends you have seen that are influencing your business and the industry currently?
Well, there's generally quite a bit of a strong trend around battery storage and innovation and adoption. That's something that we've been tracking for several years. We've been in the midst of this industry super cycle of the economic and growth and implementation effect of battery storage systems for several years now, and it's ongoing. Generally, quarter to quarter, there's been some ambiguity and uncertainty around how these incentives and supply chain effects, as well as things like tariffs, could impact the process and systems and sales and business. So the industry is a little different in terms of that complexity, but continuing to grow. And the forecasted deployments of battery storage, between whether it's a small system the size of my desk or a large system the size of a container, is really staggering. So that's really the key trends. And then there's some deeper nuanced trends around programs and virtual power plants and resilience and proper system design. So we can talk more about actual value, but initially we do have these big drivers and indicators of growth in the battery storage marketplace and some added complexity, which just presents some new risk to different players in the market.
Yeah, I think anyone in the renewable space, clean tech space in North America, we're kind of running the gauntlet of changing ideas and rules, administration, all that stuff. So I'm hopeful that that is in 2026, the playing field will really get set so that people feel comfortable in moving forward with their ambitions and their business opportunities. Obviously, you're right in the midst of all that too. What would you say is working really well in your business and for your projects right now?
Right. So there's definitely some key themes going, and part of it is just like with FENECON USA, we're launching our products in 2026 and bringing them into the market more. We're steady building and shipping products in Germany and throughout Europe. So there's that a bit of a time delay there. And I really think that a key theme is just looking at timing and execution and really making sure to understand some of these constraints that we were just talking about, like really looking at what the goals are and what the deliverables are for a business, and whether it's delivering projects or building construction or finance or actual new product and shipping product out of manufacturing. Really just evaluating the end goal over time, constraints to getting there, and executing, because right now we're in this complex marketplace, but there's new markets being created and a lot of project activity and a lot of financing. So there's a lot of the same type of momentum that we've seen around energy generation and battery storage. And now this whole new wave with continued heavy loads and then data center growth. So when we see that happening, I'm seeing really more activity around battery storage and adoption of solar, renewables, different types of microgrids than I've ever seen. And so I think a lot of the success is unlocking how to align goals of your business with where the new market development, continued growth is happening. Because in the complexity and a lot of the noise, there's these aspects of shifting tax incentives and the renewable industry having changes happening and people losing jobs and businesses going out of business, and then major growth and and just mixed information about data centers, like this lack of clarity around how to understand how that 10 to 15-year time horizon will really unfold and manifest. So pulling that in, we have a really good opportunity to execute for businesses who are really well poised to be resilient, who have been planning for mitigating risk and change and navigating those headwinds and tailwinds. It's really time to execute. And that's what I would emphasize, because I'm seeing more projects, more new opportunities, more critical infrastructure getting backed up and provided with power, more parking lots getting covered with renewable power. It's just more of the projects, which is exactly what we would have expected. So I think that's what just, being able to thrive in this moment of challenges and uncertainty, but also knowing that the future's bright and we're going to get there one way or another. And I see, all the aspects of the data center growth and all that is just in some ways securitizing and supporting certain aspects of that, even though it could be the future is uncertain as to that industry.
Yeah, I think it's obvious to everyone there is a massive demand of energy, right? So anyone who is in the business of creating energy or storing energy, there's definitely bright futures ahead as we drive into this demand cycle. And then on the flip side, you had mentioned some of those constraints or bottlenecks or maybe time-consuming issues that get in the way of executing the way you want to. Why don't you share some of those ideas of what you see are those frustrating constraints or time-consuming delays?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's various things that can have an impact. I mean, with products and developing new products, you always have to deal with certifications and safety standards. And so there's different aspects of UL certifications that can be more challenging or not. Working with auto EV first life components and products presents its own unique challenges, right? So that in itself is a critical path item that is, becomes its own project separate from the mission of a business being successful. So aligning with pathways to certifications that are, feasible, understanding the constraints and risks is really important. And also other aspects of product ready and having the right supply chain. It's important because in many cases people would stand up a product and think that it may have certain qualifications or conditions that actually aren't accurate, based on supply chain. We see a lot of that happening today. So really just understanding supply chain and understanding like traceability of components better. All of these items are areas where, you see a lot of challenges, time, things can slow down. I think, based on the complexity of things, like financing can be a drag now a little bit as well, because there's financing available, but less capital available towards just renewables or different aspects of electrification than there would have been, say 5 years ago or even 3 years ago. So access to the right kind of capital that, it may look a little different than it did 3 to 5 years ago, or things are behaving differently in the markets. That can be a challenge or a gap to really navigate. Just that, all of these underlying complexities, really being able to launch the right products, the right value chains at the right time to be able to execute, like we were talking about earlier. That involves having proper accountability, making sure that the right decisions are made and being able to just track that accountability really and have the right people making the right decisions. And I think with that in mind, it's a really good time to be working in energy and infrastructure and lots of positive momentum ahead.
Good. Yeah, you mentioned products. So let's talk a little bit about the FENECON product and go to market kind of aspect that you're thinking of 2026. What does that look like for you guys? What are you guys creating? Who would be kind of your ideal customer profile? Who are you serving? Maybe even if you have a case study of people that you're currently working with to just highlight FENECON's product line.
Right. Yes. So in the USA, we're looking at basically a 3-phase product iteration launch. Our first phase product, they'll generally look and behave similarly. Maybe some slightly different specifications that would align better with different verticals and customers. But the first phase product that we'll have ready in probably Q2 of this year. We've been working on demonstration units and prototypes all of 2025 with the auto EV components. That's not what we would launch first because of the UL considerations and it being more risky to align with customers. So we've built those systems. Continue to build them in the German marketplace and the European marketplace at the gigawatt hour scale. And so in the US marketplace, launching our first generation product will be followed by a second generation where we integrate more just a different, we're basically moving our supply chain, optimizing for any proper content requirements, best economics overall. And so we have our initial product that we're ready to launch right now. We'll actually have a next generation that's even better that we should be ready to launch, I'd say, in as soon as we get that system UL certified, which should be later in 2026 is our goal. And the third phase is aligning the auto EV first life modules with customers. And that could be done through checking off the UL requirements, which we're working on with the industry, getting the auto industry aligned with what's required specifically. There is a workaround to make it work where we can use these first life auto EV modules. And then otherwise, we can actually utilize those modules and packs from cars safely, even in other ways with proper testing and safety standards within and around the UL process, right? So that's our third phase, because I would say you're a little more exposed, a little more risky, takes more time, right? So first, second, third phase, those are all meant to align with generally behind the meter customers, which means not as much big systems that are sitting out in the field in front of the power grid, working for the power grid. We could later do that at a large scale, but really we're looking at deploying one container or two or three containers, maybe 5 or 10 containers at a time to sites as we are building those containers, right? So one way to think about it is we'll build, 50 containers as we start developing the product and rolling it out in 2026, and we'll find a home for those first 50 containers. That will be industrial sites, microgrids, maybe a solar site microgrid, or like an airport or a data center, places like that. We see quite a few different opportunities for deploying the battery solution. And then it's allowing the customer to shift their power use based on time, possibly store renewable power, and then continue, so you have available power and then more power generation from renewables, and then also providing different types of power quality and, other types of service benefits, maybe grid services or local power quality service benefits that can help with factories and data centers for having resiliency and uptime for their facilities. I'd say
Yeah.
we'd be on deploying the battery system 2026 and onward.
Okay, fantastic. With the emerging, trend of AI, how is that affecting both FENECON's, inside work, inside the business, but also maybe it comes to like sales, marketing, outreach. What's your implementation of AI through the business so far?
Right, absolutely. I think it's integrated into what we do, from a platform standpoint. We haven't really standardized around, a certain specific tool that my team uses at FENECON USA. I talk with my team members about it quite often as to how we're using AI on sales and marketing, outreach, just research and organizational work. And so it's definitely a big part of what we do. And I mean, I think on a bigger picture, while that will continue to be important from a business and organizational standpoint, on the infrastructure side, it's really quite interesting, because you can think about how you have data centers as an example. And the data centers can be modular, like lots of small data centers in the one area, or it can be like a bigger one, like a really big one even. And then they'll have batteries in there to provide certain resiliency solutions, battery storage within the data center or around the data center. And then often you will have an additional resource of like a microgrid with additional storage to have another layer of buffering to have backup power, like this redundancy, or just more backup power, right? And why that's interesting is it creates this ecosystem effect where you have the local data center environment, and then you have the movement of power and the buffering and the services from battery storage there. Then you have the local ecosystem like your microgrid and how these things behave together, and that can interact with the system overall as well. And then you have like your actual regional marketplace, right? Where like virtual marketplace where you have houses and other retailers and all these places. And they're all basically behaving in orchestration or concert is how where we're moving towards. And why I think that's interesting is AI can be all over that. Like AI knows where I'm seeing AI show up, but not necessarily quite ready yet. And a lot of businesses doing innovation around this. That's one thing is we have founders starting businesses doing applications on this, and I work with quite a few of them. And it can have to do with everything from forecasting weather to forecasting markets, integrated forecasting to local optimization of your asset, and then local optimization of like a battery with solar, and then a site, which we typically haven't been able to orchestrate as well based on like dynamic activity previously. We could do it based on loads and different parameters, but the point is we can use AI to actually do machine learning off of that. And it can optimize at a site level. It can also optimize at a battery system level. right? So we can take that down, and it actually is optimizing down within battery systems and allowing us to digitize safety and availability of power and the resource of power itself, the kilowatt or the kilowatt hour. And so AI is really all over this. And what people are trying to use it for now within all of that is to not only build tools that will allow the systems to work smarter, but to build tools that will allow us to plan the system and then execute the system better. Like, so these things are all discrete, right? Planning and then best in class new execution. And then the ecosystems, the layers of the ecosystem in that. I see AI playing a big role in that, although we have seen plenty of mistakes emerge from people trying to do good things, right? So it's interesting to see like how AI to work on tools and to evaluate data and then where we get information from otherwise. But it's really fantastic. Yes, and yeah, we could talk more about actual applications, maybe on another call and like different businesses working with AI. But I think it's going to be a really cool thing to look at, say like 5, 10 years out in the future.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's going to definitely make a huge impact to the planning, the execution, the tracking, the optimizing of energy and energy storage and where it's all moving. So it'll be really wonderful for you guys at this starting phase to be able to implement all of these solutions right from the get-go to really optimize your product line. Talking about the product line, as you roll out like this kind of three-level approach, how do you find your customers and your, first go to market kind of partners this year? What's your strategy around that?
Right. Yeah. I don't want to give away too many secrets, but sometimes the secrets are in the brand. And, that I always go look for companies to work with that have a really strong brand and good culture. Brand, because brand can mean certain things, culture can mean certain things, and that they mean certain things to me. And for us, we hire for a really good culture. We want to have a really good brand and culture through FENECON Global as well in Germany and in the USA. And, hiring for proper talent, a lot of times the talent can help align and synergize your brand and your products with the market. For us, we've had a couple of key methodologies. One is, the right personnel, the right people on the bus, being able to have the right relationships and be in a way to be consultative and solution oriented, such that we're not just trying to sell lots of a product that might not work or won't stick or it's just going to be a mess. We want to have the right product for the right people. And we want to have a lot of people who want that product, right? And it's been more of that building up the interest and the demand and then creating the type of volume across multiple channels of interest where we have different types of diversified interest. So channels that buy in different levels of volume, channels who are already more committed, other people who are just friendly and would certainly be willing to try out a product or pilot it against a lot of other possible candidates or channels that are more rigorous, and we want to go to them later because we don't want to have them as an early partner in the journey of deploying product lines that will work, but that we may want to be closer to, or to not have 50 of them out in the field. We might prefer to have 5 or less. So it's about like aligning with the right customers and, finding resellers and distributors who share in our values. And because for every time we're shipping battery storage systems, we have to align with the customer around the proper level of support and expectations and quality in what's the service delivered from that equipment. So it goes a little beyond, just FENECON USA as to our relationships with vendors that we work with and the way that we work with partners to model the performance of the systems in the field, right? So that's what last year and this year is really all about for us. And we have certainly key accounts that we're aligning with to map out our first deployments and then certain channels that we're looking to scale with.
Sounds great. Andrew, that was very strategic thinking all the way through that deployment. I'm sure many people in our audience who are also company owners, innovators, they're growing companies, probably could connect with that line of thinking, being like, hey, you want to do this correctly step by step so that over the course of this arc, bringing it to the marketplace, you're hitting the right places, the right customer, the right needs and values at the right time, rather than trying to do too much in the wrong place that could be served better down the road. So I think that makes a lot of sense. As we move towards the finish line here, let me ask you a couple like final questions, maybe even looking a little bit more into the future. If you could wave a magic wand and let's say automate 1 or 2 aspects in your current workflow just to allow you guys to be able to deliver on the value proposition into the marketplace, what would that be?
Right. So there's different aspects of it. One would certainly be, some of this I already see happening. So I'm thinking about practical things happening, right? And part of it is working through, like, if we think about like our funnel, I find that I want to be able to talk with everyone so that if there's something that I can help them with, I can help them. But I don't have time to talk with everyone, nor should anyone really think that that's what they're meant to do, right? But that's what I'm constantly working to build. AI can help with that, right? AI, I don't necessarily envision robots doing outreach for me, but being I've used AI to manage market development and research and market development and business development plans for people, where I had an intern or an independent contractor working, within 30 minutes with a plan for 60 or 90 days that, it was quite valuable. You know what I'm saying? It was like, say, if you take these, it was, finding free resources, what the two steps you take to access that resource, what the two steps you do with that resource, how to iterate on that for 2 or 3 months to make yourself six figures, right? It's like, boom. And that's AI. That's not a marketing and business plan. It's not, otherwise, it takes you 6 months to get that information. If we just look at a arc or a pattern of a 6 month process or a 1 year or 2 year process, let's use AI to pull that in, because that's what AI does, right? Other than the people effects and the different stops along the way, I've always been keen on taking a 6 month process, pulling it in to make it 2 weeks or like 2 days, like depending on like, because usually there's a couple of items that are important, but we're not iterating in a way that they're like, hey, if we execute on this, we're going to be good. We keep going, right? Finding those critical path items, moving them. So using AI to execute better from an operational standpoint and not letting businesses spin their wheels for 6 months or more, but being able to pull in operational aspects from like process or logistics or a Gantt chart standpoint to just solve for those patterns, the patterns where people feel good about doing one thing a day or one thing a week, or taking one step forward per week.
Yeah.
You literally, I've learned from people throughout my career, you just like get in a meeting with that person and don't leave the meeting until you're done. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, that sounds hard. That's the idea.
As a mentor said to me a long time ago, that success loves speed. And I think what happens with AI is it allows things to move a little faster. Now, of course, you have to implement it correctly so that it's done the right way, but it allows things to kind of move a little faster that normally could get stuck in the weeds just with like a lack of communication, efficiency, all those things. So I think AI is going to help us all. The conversation's been fantastic. I really appreciate you jumping on the Blue Ocean Solutions podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can reach me on my email at andrew.dunn, that's DUNN, at FENECON, FENECON.com. That's a really good way to connect, or otherwise just reach out to Kreel or myself and we can get you in touch over phone or set up a meeting.
Any final words for our audience before we sign off here?
Yeah, just keep connecting the dots, and keep taking time to meet more people and try to take steps forward rather than just standing still or moving backwards, unless absolutely necessary. I think the networking that we're doing on LinkedIn and just being able to connect with people, and like that methodology I described before of just being able to, if I could just reach out to people, I want to have people doing that through LinkedIn and otherwise, to be able to move smarter solutions forward fast at a lower cost, because generally a lot of that information isn't really out there for people. So I just want to share that message and empower more people with that information and encourage others to get involved.
Right. Thank you for your insights, Andrew. To our audience, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe to the channel, share it with a friend, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Have a great day, everybody.